All right, everybody. It's the Jerry Metcalf podcast where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And today on the show from Denver or just south of Denver, Castle Pines, Colorado, is Stacie Chadwick with Live Sotheby's International Realty. Stacie, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So, Stacie, just to sum it up, everybody, you've been in business since what, 2019?
Yes, I joined in March of 2019.
Your first year was amazing. You did, and I'm not done yet, everybody, but this is just the beginning. You did 4 million and then you did 27 million and now you're doing 26 million.
65 million
I
this
mean,
year.
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Sorry, y'all. Yes, thank you. 4 million, 27 million, and then 65 million in 2020. I mean, that is unbelievable. So, all that said, how and why in the world did you get into the business of being a residential real estate agent?
Well, my first career was commercial real estate in Chicago. I was a tenant rep broker for about 12 years. And my husband and I started having children. We had one, we had another. Both of us were working, traveling, and we wanted a third. And we knew that it wasn't really sustainable to have two people traveling all over the world and raising kids because we wanted to be there for our kids. So we kind of made a life decision and I stopped working and I loved my career. I loved commercial real estate, loved the people,
Wow.
loved everything. I loved it. But I also loved our children. So we made a lifestyle decision to move to Colorado because he's a native and I stopped working to raise the kids. And
Wow.
when we moved here, they were a newborn, 1 and 3, and now they're 17, 19, and 21. So I started thinking about doing something, going back into the workforce when they started driving and started not needing me as much. And, maybe we all need more space from teenagers, right? And
For
that's
them,
when I
from
made the
us.
decision to go back. And then I went back, almost 3 years ago, and here I am. And I chose residential over commercial simply because my sphere was all the people I knew in my neighborhood for the 17 years that we've lived
Yeah.
here. So it just made more sense rather than going backwards to kind of work or with the people I know and go forward just into a different space.
That's amazing. And commercial tenant rep, was it like office tenant rep?
It was office
Okay.
tenant rep. It was multinational tenant rep. So when I was traveling 100,000 miles all over the world. And my
Okay.
husband was traveling all over the country. We just weren't around and it wasn't the way we wanted to ground our children. So I stepped out.
Wow, that's amazing. And you went from
Yeah,
Chicago to the suburbs of Denver, Colorado. I
correct.
mean, like, what a change. So you're good with change,
You know,
apparently.
I'll be honest with you. I got a lot of my self satisfaction out of my career. And to go from having a really big job to being a full time mom was really hard. It took me about a year to adjust because, all that external, whatever you get from your clients and the things you do, it just disappeared. And, I went from living kind of a very urban life where we walked everywhere from the pediatrician to Whole Foods to our favorite restaurants to buying a big Yukon XL and driving everywhere. So it was a transition. It didn't happen overnight. But once it did, I was all in to be a full-time mom. But it,
I
it
mean,
was it was hard.
because there's also for all the moms and for everybody, like when you're looking at your life and success, this is relevant, but especially for the women listening. And I've talked to a lot of moms being an agent where they're like, stepping out of my job was one of the most challenging things I ever did because you lose your identity, you lose some sense of control, you lose
Yes.
like purpose. I always said, I don't know, mine are 10 and 11. I don't know if I have what it takes to actually do that because it's a like, and then dealing with change and uncertainty. So, did you have your moment where you're like, what the heck have I done? Or,
I did. I mean, I had many moments like that. And, when we moved here, my husband still traveled a lot. So it was me and my 3 kids. And and they're all 22 months apart. So it was, always go, 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 go. But once I got into the groove of that, I just took what I was channeling into my career and channeled it right into my kids,
that's
so,
awesome.
and I wouldn't change anything. I mean, it was the right time to step out and, give them everything that I could. So it was great.
So, you did that. That was how many, what was that, 15 years?
hmm For
So,
15 years. Yeah.
so about 15 years later, it's 2019,
Mhm.
and you say, this is getting really relevant to everybody listening, but like, hey, I'm going to be a real estate agent. So just because we didn't talk about this before we recorded, we've got people listening to the show who are thinking about it. People have been doing it for more than 20, 30, 40 years, and broker owners are doing a couple hundred million a year
Mhm.
and all or more. So, but that being said,
What was the catalyst?
yeah.
This is, my husband's not going to like me telling the story, but it's true. He was the vice chancellor for CU, University of Colorado. And that's a big job with a lot of events. And we were at this event and I was kind of standing behind him and he forgot to introduce me to all the people in front of him. And I felt really invisible. I did. I felt bad. And I said to myself in that moment, it's time for me to go do something for myself. I've been channeling so much of who I am to other people that it's time for me to go back to what I love. And my dad was a builder. My aunt was the top realtor in Augusta, Georgia. It's truly in my blood. Yeah, her name's
You
Boots
didn't,
Holden. Boots
what's her
Holden.
name?
Yeah. Her name,
Wait, say,
she's long retired. She's in her
wait,
80s
say it
now.
again though. I keep not getting it.
Boots, Boots, Holden, Holden.
I mean, for those of you who don't know, most people do. That is where the Masters is every year.
Mhm.
I mean, Augusta, that is like true Georgia,
Yeah,
true Southern.
yeah,
That
yeah,
is so cool.
yeah.
Okay.
So it was a moment. It was literally a moment where I knew I had to change something and kind of regain that identity that I'd given up, and very gladly, willfully, happily so. But it was time for version 3.0, and that was the catalyst. And then I was working for Live, and I kind of leveraged my commercial real estate experience because, at Sotheby's, as a new agent, you generally don't get hired. So I leveraged what I had done in commercial and convinced them to hire me and just take a chance.
Yeah.
And, you know, here we are. So,
And here we are from
yeah.
like nothing to 65 million in basically 3 years. It's unbelievable.
Mhm.
So that is because like, what woman cannot relate to that? I
Yeah.
mean, we could go on about the woman thing, but we don't have time. But I mean, I like totally get it. So that moment, you decide, hey, it's time for me to recreate myself. And it was like, talk about timing, talk about kind of a divine intervention thing, because it was kind of like this little knock, like, hey, time to do something new, time to change
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer that small decisions, big decisions. I mean, I altered the course of my life by making that decision, and altered the course of my family's life by making that decision. So I'm glad I did. It's been
Yeah.
crazy, but it's been so much fun so far.
So breaking in, you went from, mom
Mhm.
to, of course, you were a former big broker, but it's been 15 years, mom to how'd you break in, like those beginning days, what they look and feel like, and how did you really get that traction?
I think, especially for men or women, but especially women thinking about coming back, the first year I was drinking out of a fire hose. Sotheby's has so many resources, so many systems, even just understanding MLS, right? And how to run a search. I mean, I hadn't done any of it. So the whole first year was largely me trying to figure out what I was doing, and then maybe looking into some transactions here and there, because I only work with my sphere and referrals. I'm a big believer in ninja, and I'm a big believer in working with your sphere, period. Everything I've done, with the exception of some, I've lucked into some people calling me whatever they see my listings, but the large majority of what I've done has been my sphere and referrals from my sphere. And I'm a big marketer. I'm a writer. I have a decent social media presence. So I just started promoting myself, hopefully not in a way that was, I don't know,
Well, apparently you did
egotistical,
okay.
right? But and really kind of leveraging that old experience as a commercial broker, saying, hey,
There
I
you
can bring
go.
something different to the table. And then not being afraid to ask my friends for business. I know that's a controversial thing for people. Some people
Yeah.
really don't like to work with friends. I work with all my friends, and I work with my friends' friends, and I work with their neighbors. I am always, I'm always in a very undercurrent way asking for business, largely because
Yeah.
I'm really focused on relationships. I never come to say someone and say, can I sell your house?
So
I get to know someone and then the relationship takes off from there.
So talking about that a couple of things. There's the angle or just the understanding of, yes, you had this awesome superpower career. Yes, you basically raised three children with a lot on you because of the travel of your husband. And yes, you made that huge change. So obviously you've got kind of the grit to make it happen. But as you go into it, I mean, two things. How did you make sure, because you can have all the connections in the world, but I know a lot of people have a lot of connections, they can't figure out how to leverage them. You did that, and going into that means you know how to ask friends in a non-gross way
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
business.
No, in a way that doesn't
So
feel,
how do you do it?
I'll tell you, I had a little bit, I think, of a lucky thing happen with my first listing. Um, I play a lot of tennis. So I'm always reaching out, wishing people happy birthday. How can I help you? I'm a connector, right? I just love connecting people. So I'd reached out to this person, wished her a happy birthday. And then a week later, somehow I heard that they were going to put their house on the market. Um, at this point, I didn't even have the confidence yet to pitch it by myself. It was an almost $3 million listing, architecturally significant home in my neighborhood. So I felt like, I'm going to bring one of our top producing agents with me, make sure I do this the right way. And we won the work. Well, I didn't have any other listings. And so I channeled every ounce of energy I had into promoting that one. And it had a really interesting backstory. It's a really modern home in a neighborhood that doesn't really fit that mold. And the people who bought it bought the shell of the house. Roof was there, windows, but no interior work had been done. The developer owner had died while he was building this house. It sat vacant for 10 years. Then they bought it, finished it off. So the backstory of the developer was fascinating. They were fascinating. So I wrote a press release because I'm an English literature major. My first job was in PR, and I submitted it to Liv Sotheby's. I'm like, can you help me promote this? They took it to the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal picked it up. This house,
Your
behind
first
it,
listing.
my
That's
first listing.
incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
was voted third place home of the year in the Wall Street Journal. I was quoted in the journal. So then I would leverage that with other high-end listings and just continue to build. But that first listing, I mean, there was some definite luck that accompanied that. And that's kind of what set everything in motion.
You call it luck, but how many people have opportunities that they just don't harness since they just weren't lucky? So
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I do think that whole luck is when preparation meets opportunity. I do believe in that, but there was something going on there, I think, I don't know. I
it's
worked really
amazing.
hard to promote that listing in creative ways. And I think that then helped other people gain confidence in me who maybe knew me as, the volunteer at the swim meet and the person, because I always
That's
did, right? As a
yeah.
full-time mom, I always was involved in everything, but gave them the confidence to maybe make the leap that I could be someone who could represent them. So,
And that's the big question for a lot of people. When when you've got this great sphere of influence, it can work against you because you're the mom or you're the volunteer or you're the kid you're the kid of somebody, as opposed to back to the whole point of this was who you are.
yeah.
So leveraging that so talking about that, you were great at marketing and you knew it. You were great at writing and you knew it, and you were good at just getting exposure and PR and social media. You took those things and leveraged them with a listing. The other thing we talked about was you connected. You used birthdays. I mean, really, birthdays. What a great excuse to connect. So you use birthdays. You tell people happy birthday because that's what you do anyway. And you play tennis. So that's pulling all of these people together. And the biggest thing that I'm reiterating, so everybody hears it, just from interviewing so many people, but you had a big opportunity, but you knew to partner. And by the way, you partnered the right way.
Yeah.
You had somebody partnered as, your anchor or your back or your credibility.
I did.
But you didn't not harness the opportunity go back to your network and your skills and who you know and what you do. You still had, that was what sold that listing, and you made sure of it.
Yeah, and I knew it was the right thing. On my first three listings, I partnered on every single one of them because I just, I wasn't a legacy 30, 20-year, 10-year realtor. And what I did before was different, commercial tenant rep work, from your husband. There's some commonalities, but there's a lot of differences too. So I definitely feel like I always put my clients' best interests first. And nobody I work with thinks of me as someone who just wants to close a transaction. I mean, I'll walk away. I mean, I'll advise a buyer not to buy a house and a seller not to sell a house if I don't think it's right for them, because I really care about the people. And then the transactions follow that. They do.
Isn't it amazing when you do business that way, how you end up just doing that much more business?
Yeah, I think because people think that you're genuine and they think that you're trustworthy
Yeah.
and they think that you have their best interests at heart, not your best interests. So, that's my philosophy, just to try to build the relationship and not work towards the deal.
So first year, yeah, by the way, not to work, I always say this, it's about the focus is them and serving your client,
Right,
not quote the deal.
right.
Did you find in going from commercial to residential, was it like this is more emotional or what were the biggest differences?
Definitely the emotion. In commercial, first of all, I mean, it's, my clients, in some ways, my client base is the same because my clients were CEOs, business owners, CFOs, same client base, right? Same person who I'm friends with selling houses for, but it's commercial, really, it's real estate is not an emotional business. If you don't get the office space that you want, you go to plan B and you don't even think twice about it. Residential is all emotion. I mean, it's managing people and relationships and fear and mitigating, potential landmines, because this is, as generally a person's largest asset or one of their largest assets is their home. So the emotional piece was a big difference. And then the hours, you know, again, commercials largely 9 to 5, 5 days a week, and residential is anything but that. So, I give a lot more of myself, I think, in residential than I did in commercial. And that was a bit of a surprise because I just hadn't been exposed to the residential, brokerage side.
Yeah. So being married to a commercial agent, I know. No,
Yeah,
but
right.
I'm being funny. But yeah. So going from, and that is, I think, like one of the biggest things that for me breaking through in my business was understanding how to mitigate these emotions and fears and understanding how to communicate, especially I started so young.
Yeah.
But for you, what, like when you came into it, was it like in commercial, it's just numbers, it's, do you have a story of like when you realize, hey, this is emotional and this is how I'm going to have to, any like thing you figured out, okay, how to handle things better or get them through better or get people in that place where you can diffuse all of those emotions that can get in the way or like you
I
said,
think,
mitigate
I
landmines.
don't know. I don't really have that horror story, knock on wood, not yet. Um, but I'm a huge communicator. I always try to be ahead of what someone's going to ask me, So I feel like if I'm reaching out to you as my client before you're reaching out to me, then I'm going to be able to diffuse just about anything that comes down the road because I'm the one who's, for lack of a better word, managing the communication process, right? The worst thing that can happen is a client reaches out to me with something I don't know. So I'm always circling wagons, whether it's new development, is it going to be delivered on time? I'm reaching out to the developer. Hey, is this going to happen? Because if it's not, I got to put out this fire, right? So I'm an over communicator. I mean, you're going to hear from me maybe more than you want to, but if you're my client, you're not going to have, I'm not going to say any surprises because there's always a surprise, but you're going to have, I think, a lot less because
Yeah.
I'm always reaching out, hey, how are you doing? Hey, how was your Thanksgiving? Hey, did you meet with the designer to pick out your tile? Everything from A to Z. Can we have coffee? And that's another thing I do, except for during COVID, I do try to personally touch about 50 people a week, whether it's walking with people, whether it's drinks, whether it's going to a party, because again, my client base is my sphere. So if I can touch 50 people, well, those 50 people may not need something, but one person's neighbor might
So
need
you,
something. So because I saw them, they're going to say, hey, you should call Alex because I think he just got a job transfer to
yeah.
Seattle, you
Wait,
know,
personally touch how many people a week?
50.
It's a
And
lot.
that's a ninja thing. That's a ninja,
Yeah.
try to see and not talk about real estate because the real estate comes up to me. I'm just talking
Yeah.
about your family, what you're doing for vacation. And then 100 out of 100 times, the person I'm talking to will say, how's the market? What's happening? I mean, I don't have to initiate any of that because real estate is such a hot topic right now. It just comes my way.
As long as they know you're a real estate agent,
As long as they know,
which
which
is
they do.
pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
So 50 people a week you're touching, and
Mhm.
we had to pause and edit everybody for a minute. So you said the last thing I would say is asking for them for a referral. I mean, you just like, right? Exactly. But give
No,
us a little bit
no,
about that, what you mean by
no.
that.
I was just saying the last thing I would say is, do you want to sell your house? Unless something is so pointed because I get a referral because someone is selling their house and they know I'm calling for that reason. But I never ask to represent someone. I just talk to people, and ask them about themselves and their lives. And I establish that personal connection because that's actually what I'm really interested in, right? I'm interested in knowing who you are, where you came from, where you're going. And you're going to work your way around to real estate at some point because you know what I do because I always talking to my sphere. So the last thing I would say to someone is, do you want to sell your house? Can I sell your house? It feels artificial. It is artificial, and it's not the way to build relationships and win work, in my opinion.
Exactly.
In my
Yeah,
opinion.
but think about all of the training that tells you to do that. So
Yeah.
for all of those who have heard that over and over and that that's what they have to do, help them by saying, okay, so if you're not asking for it, how do you, because earlier you said, don't be afraid to ask for the business. Of course, I know what you mean. And a lot of people know what you mean, but a lot of people don't.
Well, so I'm kind of two minds. If I'm with you personally and we're having a conversation like we are right now, there's no way I'm going to say, can I sell your house? However, I do self promote, right? So all my listings, I do, fun pictures at listings where I'm either shoveling a driveway or I'm, rolling up a shade or I'm cleaning a table because I'm a detail oriented person. I want people to know I'm going to get very granular, with you. So I'm always pushing myself out there from a promotion standpoint. But when it comes to that relationship and you and I are one on one, you've already seen all my stuff on social media because you're
You don't
part of my
have to ask.
sphere, right? And I'm working with my sphere. And so I'm focused on you as a person. And then if and when a transaction is supposed to present itself, it will, because you'll tell me, hey, I'm thinking of selling my house because we might move to
It
Seattle,
actually
right?
really will happen.
Yeah, exactly.
A
No,
lot
it
of people don't
does.
believe it. It
No,
really,
it does. And it's just, I don't know if you've had anyone from Ninja on here, but
we have.
that process, it works. And it's all about relationships and not at all about
But
asking
that's what
someone.
it's but that's like actually what it's about, right? Like that's actually like here's the thing. Real estate agents actually all have value. Like there's so much value that we offer that we don't have to go like what is it? Force ourselves between a person and a deal to get the commission and like
Right,
catch it.
right.
We offer more value than that. And I
Yes.
think a lot of this old training, there's this belief in there that that's what you have to do to get it, and you just don't.
No,
We
but
have so much.
I do believe in protecting your fee. I mean,
Oh,
I,
absolutely. Oh, no, that's what, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Oh,
yeah.
no, exactly.
And
Yeah.
so much so, I'm so protective of my fee and I back it up with my expertise and then the Live Sotheby's brand, the Sotheby's brand, that I'm actually known as someone who will not discount. And I love that because that means I'm not getting the calls from the people who want to pay the 1%. They're just not going to call me,
Well, they're not going to value you or be very
No.
nice to work with either.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And for
anyway,
some people, like some people go to Walmart and some people go to Saks
right.
and then you get what you pay for. And that's the truth. That's not a dig. That's nothing. That's just reality. So,
I agree 100%. Yeah.
all right. So now moving on in your career, tell us. So first year, we've hung really a lot on that. First year you went in, we kind of know what happened. And 4 million in your first year is not bad.
It's
So
yeah,
you did,
I was not unhappy with that number. like, great, that's great. I had no expectations. I really didn't. I did it to regain my identity and, finish out the kids' college funds. I mean, I didn't come into it saying, I have this goal at year 1, year 2, year 3. I just wanted to go to version 3.0 and start doing something more for myself again. So
So 4 million in your first year to 20, I keep forgetting 25 million, isn't it?
yes,
Or 25,
27,
67,
27. Yeah. 27, my second, and then this
27,
year will be
65.
65.
So how did you get 4 in your first year and how did you jump to 27? And what's your advice to people who want to break in and or just grow their business? And then we're going to talk about getting to 65 and what the differences were.
I think I got to tell you, I think my social media presence helped. My very first transaction was a friend. She had already chosen her condo. She just wanted someone to do the deal. I felt comfortable with that. That was on the buy side because I'd done so many leases, so many purchase agreements in commercial, right?
Yeah.
My first listing was the one I told you about. That didn't close the first year. I had a relative's aunt's daughter hire me, to help them buy a home. I mean, everything really came organically through either someone I knew or someone who knew someone that I knew. And really a lot of my social media work and the people I'm connected to in that realm was what brought people to me. And then I
So,
continued. So then I started leveraging my listings because I started to get some significant listings. And I think during COVID, I don't know, maybe I was carrying about 10 million in listings at that time. And then April hit and we came out of COVID and things started raining down on me, because people were making life-changing decisions, right? Life-changing decisions that maybe they wouldn't have made without COVID. And Colorado's, a destination state. We have a net 1,000 people a day who are moving here. And I happen to live in an area that really feels like you're on vacation. It feels like the mountains, but you're a 30-minute drive from downtown. You have all the amenities you want around you. So something about the combination of my community, the listings I had, the timing, the way I put myself out there, because I am assertive. I like to use the word aggressive. I think aggressive has a negative connotation with women. So I'm going to say assertive. I am assertive. I go for things, I do. But in a way that's not gross, and just doesn't feel
well, you're
bad.
not afraid, you're not, your value and you're not, it's a disservice to not offer your value to people if you can help them.
Yeah. So what happened, because I'm sure it happened in Atlanta. The world opened up with COVID and then my business just took off to a different level, and then I
Well,
just kept,
opportunity meets preparation. It was that kind of thing too,
I
it sounds
mean,
like.
yeah.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know. And then timing, I mean, who knew this market was going to happen? Who knew this was what is happening right now? I mean, no one could have predicted it 2 years ago. So
Mm.
that was a big piece of it. So I think there are a lot of just, always following my process. I write 2 personal notes a day. That's a ninja thing, right? I fell off of it a little bit this year when things got really crazy.
Hmm.
Big ninja thing is gratitude, just waking up in the
Oh,
morning and
yeah.
starting your day saying, I know I've got this crazy day and I'm going to work until 10 o'clock tonight ahead of me, but what am I grateful for? Right. And just kind of grounding yourself in the moment. So those personal notes, gratitude, touching people, social media. So I don't know how this is in every state, but in Colorado as a listing agent, you don't have to be at your listings. You don't. And where in Chicago, residential agents were always at their listings. Here, you don't have to be.
Yeah.
But for my significant listings, I'm there, and I'm
Yeah.
selling the house, I'm selling the neighborhood. I would pick up buyers, just from being there. Right.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly.
and, and, and I think you probably share this. I'm incredibly passionate about what I do. I love what I do and I love the people I work with. And I can't help but be excited. And if you're not excited in your job, I would say go get a different job because life is short. And if I'm spending 80 hours a week working, I better love it.
You
That's a
better.
lot. That's a lot of hours,
Yeah. You've said, but love what you do or do something else.
Yeah, no, just go do something else because you can get a job by throwing a dart at a dartboard right now. So go get a different job if you don't love what you do. It's not worth it, you know?
Social media work. You've said that, I bet, 4 or 5 times, and I have great social media, great social media, great social media. Tell us what great social media, like, what is that? How do we create that for ourselves?
So as a Sotheby's agent, anytime I have a new listing, not only am I putting it out to my sphere, I'm putting it into the Live Sotheby's world and I'm putting it into the Sotheby's world because I'm trying to connect with Sotheby's agents for referrals. So, like on Facebook, we have a Sotheby's Facebook page. I don't know, maybe there's 5,000 Sotheby's agents.
Yeah.
Every new listing I have, I take the time to put there and I've just started to get referrals. I mean, just literally in the past few months, and I haven't gone to G&E or any of that stuff yet. I haven't had time.
Forget the plane ticket. Just put it on the Sotheby's page. I
Yeah,
got it. I'm kidding.
no, but it really,
Sotheby's gonna be like, thanks a lot. Thanks a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. And then we have coming soon in the Colorado brokerage community that connects me with non-live Sotheby's brokers. So I'm marketing. I mean, you got to market to agents, right? Having the relationships that I'm building with agents are critical to me being successful because I want to be that agent that someone sees and says, oh yeah, I want to work with Stacie. I see what she puts out there. I see what her attitude is, her spirit is. So to me, an agent on the other side can make or break my client's experience because if we're not working well together after we're, in our separate corners representing our clients, if we can't come together and make a deal happen,
Well, you can't do your job.
right. I mean, you can't do your job. So I'm marketing to Sotheby's agents. I'm marketing to Live agents. I'm marketing to Compass agents and Remax agents and Berkshire Hathaway agents. And I'm marketing to my sphere. So everything I do, I'm trying to hit different audiences because they're all important for different reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. When you being in this, I mean, I'm still going like 4 million. I don't care if there was COVID or not. That was amazing. 4 million to 25 million. 27 million to 65. Y'all, I apologize. 4 million, 25 million.
It's late in the
4,
day.
27, 65. The numbers have got me. 4 million, 27 million, and 65 million. How do you, I want to go into two things and then when we are going to get into our final three, because we've already been talking for a while, but how do you manage? So number one, everybody, you've talked about, Stacie's talked about, it's all about knowing what you're good at and leveraging those gifts and doing your best with them. Number two, it's all about your relationships and building them. And number three, oh, by the way, while you're doing all that, be sure you love it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
because this business will eat you alive if you don't love it. I mean, truth be told, it was a very financially successful year for me, but it was a hard year. When you have this kind of spigot that's open, you're not going to say no, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't really have the infrastructure to support the work I was doing. And so I just did it all. Largely, I had a part-time assistant and that was helpful. She started in January. But by the time I got a part-time assistant, what I didn't know is what I really needed was a full-time assistant, but you don't know what you don't know. Right. So,
right. Yeah.
And we had this really interesting speaker. Liv does a good job of having kind of help you, leadership people come and talk to us. Anyway, she said, okay, what do you think the opposite of play is? What's the opposite of play? What word comes to mind? Opposite of play is.
That was Liz Bentley.
Was it? Okay. So you know what I'm talking about? It hit
right.
me.
The opposite of play is misery, but most people say work.
Work.
One of my team members said work, and I was like, my friend, work is play.
No, but it's the reason it struck me was because I was in this like major production zone and I wasn't seeing my kids or my family. I wasn't getting outside. I wasn't playing tennis. I wasn't doing anything. I was just working. And as great as the year was, there were moments that were really hard, because I was not balanced. Yep. And I wouldn't give up this year for anything, but next year I'm going to change it up, and I'm going to have more support and I am going to force myself to take more time off because if you're doing all this great work, but you're not enjoying it, then you're just working, and that's not why any of us are doing this,
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah. Make sure
yeah, it was
work is
Liz
fun.
Bentley. So it was a Sotheby's
It
thing,
was Liz
I guess.
Bentley. Yeah, I remember that
Yeah.
because I didn't hear it. So I asked the team because I couldn't be there. I had to be doing, I was doing something at an appointment or whatever.
Mhm.
And they all told me. And then anyway, we had fun with that question, but what a brilliant question.
Yeah. And it just hit me at a time when I was working way too much. And I said to myself, I gotta figure this out for 2022. And I gotta get some more balance
Mm-hmm.
because what I'm doing right now is not sustainable for career version 3.0. It's sustainable for a year, but it's really not sustainable beyond that. So that is what I'm working toward for next year. I want big production, but I'm sharing that load, and I'm paying to share for that load because I do want to go for a hike and I do want to go to Florida and I do want to do the things, that we're working for, which is to enjoy our life too. So anyway.
And it's funny how when you get happier, we had an interview, the one before yours actually, and she said, be sure you have fun because you really can't sell much when if you're not happy, it's not going to happen. People don't
Yeah,
buy from unhappy people. It doesn't go
no,
well. It gets
yeah,
harder.
yeah. And so it's been such a growth curve for me for the past 3 years that I finally feel like
Yeah.
I'm kind of catching up to myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take a breath. And for next year, I want to do as well as I can, but I'm going to leverage, I'm going to rest, I'm going to play, and I'm going to continue to have fun working because I do love what I do. I really do. I do.
That's awesome. Having the foresight to what you're doing to understand sometimes when just the high sales is the only goal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had to work really hard and not sleep to get them. So I'll just do more of that to get further, which you don't
Yeah.
get there. You don't get to the next level the same way you got to the one where you are.
Yeah.
So it's counterproductive. So the funny thing is listening to you and what you're doing and looking at infrastructure, not doing more of what I'm doing.
The same way.
That's going to grow your business even more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's going to grow it if it can grow. I mean, I think this is a banner year for a lot of people. I look at this year for a lot of people in Sotheby's and like, how could anyone do more than this year? Because it was just, this confluence of pretty awesome circumstances for people like you and me. Yeah, but I'm going to do it better next year. Whatever that number is, I'm going to do it in a more rounded way, which is, I think, important. I do.
And it's actually a service to your clients too. Really.
Absolutely. 100%.
So for somebody going into business, what is your biggest advice on breaking in and growing? If their goal is to break in successfully and just take off and launch the way you did, what's your advice on that? And then we're going to do a final 3 questions too, by the way. But what first, your advice there?
I came at this a little differently because I did have this whole commercial career that really gave me a lot of confidence. I never, even when I stepped out of the workforce, I never lost what I did, right? Like the impressions, the lessons, the knowledge base. So for me, breaking into residential, I did feel like I had a little bit of a leg up because I did leverage that, and really, and your husband will attest to this, probably for me, the best quality I had as a commercial broker was the ability to negotiate, right? I love negotiating. And negotiating is about confidence. It's about telling someone no, right? Just no. And so because commercial real estate, that was such a big piece of what I did, I think I was able to differentiate myself a little bit in those early meetings with people and say, I'm going to negotiate. If I can get you $1,000, I'm going to get that $1,000. And if I can get you 100,000, I'm definitely getting you that. But I do love to negotiate. And I tried to set myself apart that way because I don't know, I never ran into Sotheby's realtors in Chicago. My experience with residential realtors in Chicago, everyone that I met wasn't that great. So I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder coming from commercial, thinking, oh, commercial is so much more professional, so much more educated, blah, blah, blah. And then I joined Sotheby's and I'm looking around going,
Wow.
okay, like these people are sharp and they're smart and they're successful. So I think if you can find that differentiator that gives you the confidence to ask, either ask for the work if you're in listing presentation, or be confident enough to tell your friends, hey, I'm a realtor, think about me. And again, I don't do it that way, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think you need to create some kind of story for yourself. I mean, you need to create your own story, because why would someone hire someone with no experience over someone with 20 years of experience? Why? I said, I am coming at this completely differently than everyone else you've worked for. And these are the reasons why,
Well, it's
so.
like watch David and Goliath, the TED Talk by Seth Godin a few times, because that's exactly what it is. But
Okay.
just to wrap up or sum up that, what you just said, it's number one, know your strengths and leverage them and
Yeah.
have a story around it so
Yeah.
people will remember it. Be confident, have that confidence, find what you're good at to pull confidence from that.
Right.
Faking it doesn't really usually, it's usually
I've
pretty,
never liked that term, fake it till you make it. I
yeah,
just don't
that's,
believe it. It's not, it's plastic. You can't fake something and feel
it's
genuine
fake
about
is
it.
fake, right? Like,
So find the story,
there's a reason
and
why I
it can be
keep,
an emotional story. Like a woman in our firm, she got divorced and she had to make money and she had to raise her kids. And that was her story. And she's smart and efficient and believable and good at what she does. Her story had nothing to do with negotiating, but her story was real. And people work with people they like, and people wanted to help her. And then she became this big
yeah.
blockbuster realtor. But that was how she differentiated herself,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Leverage, know your strengths, leverage them with a
Yeah.
story,
Yeah.
or that's one way to do it.
Right.
Be confident, know your strengths again, and pull your confidence from that. And number three, like, be aggressive, and not in that, yucky, but in that I'm here to serve you, and I'm not going, like I always say, tell agents on my team, don't let your clients miss out on you. Don't let your prospects miss out on what you have to offer. Go
Right.
after it.
Yeah. And I do think it's a fine line, because I am aggressive, but I am not that person at a party going from, drink to drink saying, can I help you? Can I help you? Can I help you? It's a little more esoteric, I think, like there's a
Yeah.
fine line, but I'm out there and people know I'm out there. And then especially through social media, I do a full page ad in our Castle Pines newspaper. It goes to about 15,000 people. It is a newspaper that people read because it's full of community news. It's a great paper. I do. It's a brag sheet for me. I'm putting my listing. So it's a balance between pushing yourself out there, but when you're with people, like they know that you're with them. Right. And it's kind of a delicate, fine line, but I kind of I do both. I push aggressively from a marketing standpoint, but when I'm with you, we're having a cocktail and we're talking about your sister-in-law who you can't stand. And I don't know how I feel about Thanksgiving and, blah, blah, we are real with each other. And if it transaction comes up, it does, if it doesn't, it doesn't. We're still going to go have cocktails again, a couple months from now, or I'm going to see you at a party, but I'm solely focused on you as a person when we're together this way. That's it.
Love that. All right, the final three questions.
Okay.
Number one, what do you think has been your biggest resource in your success?
Resource within, you mean from my company or from, or
I love it when
internal
most
resource?
people just answer that question because it's kind of a trick question. So I
Oh, it
love
is.
it.
Okay.
I'm always like, I'm always waiting for that. And then they just have it. So anyway, for some people, it might be their CRM. For some people, it might be something that they do. For mine, it's the way I used to bring people together that brought business my way. That was really probably mine, if you asked me.
I
It
think
could
it's,
be
yeah.
anything.
If I had to say, what's the one biggest thing, it's that I'm a people person and I'm relationship driven. I'm a communicator.
Communicator. You're an over communicator.
I'm an over communicator. I just love people. I mean, if I love putting divorced people together and seeing if like they click. I love recommending my dentist to the person who just moved in. I mean, this is like, forget about real estate. I
Yeah.
love connecting people.
Your love,
I love it.
your
I'm a
love of,
matchmaker.
yeah, you're a matchmaker.
Yeah.
That's
So
what
it's
you're
my
supposed to
communication
be.
and I'm always asking questions like, who are you? How are you? Where are you from? I just had, I get some pretty great leads from my listings. And I had a guy call me from Ocean Reef, Florida today. Never talked to us, had never talked to me before, saw my listings. When we got off the phone, he had sent me a picture of he and his fiance. I knew how they met. He sent me a video of the house he's moving down, building down there, because our conversation was, sure, we talked about the market a little bit, but I'm like, who are you? Where are you from? Tell me about you. How old are you? How old's your fiance? Where'd you meet? Oh, you met through your dogs. We got personal really, really fast. And that's why I think he wants to work with me, because we just had a great conversation, because I want to know about him, more so than anything else. And then, I'll set up an MLS search for him. He's coming out in March. We'll get to know each other better that way. But a lot of my cold calls like that, and I am getting a lot more of them through listings. I'm just like you, I'm very transparent, and I'm just kind of trying to reach in, and I want to know who you are, because I also want to know if I want to work with you. You in this business.
Exactly. You give people a lot, you better want to.
Yeah, because you're tight at the hip, as long as you're tight at the hip. So you better have a connection. So I'm looking for that connection for me, as much as I think that person who's sanitizing me is looking for that connection for them. So I go personal just like that. I do.
Wow.
And then
no, finish. Sorry.
No. And then, we work our way back around to the business piece.
Yeah. It's just your love of people and connecting. That's really what it is. And I'm going to add to that, to everybody listening, is when you do that, a lot of people can do that and don't do well. You're positioning yourself in the background as the professional. You know your stuff, and you have the positioning, the marketing out there, that the minute they Google your name, I love her, and wow, look at what she's doing. Wow, look at who she is. Wow, look at what she's accomplished.
And that's the self-promotion piece, but you can do it in the background, right? Because who's not on social media? What home search doesn't start online, right? So you do that in the background, and then in the foreground, I'm just focused on you. And then you're going to come back to me and say, okay, tell me about Castle Pines Village. And then boom, I'm going to switch to my, my professional mode. But I'm always focused on you as a person first, always.
Question number 2.
Okay.
Book. Is there a book we have to listen to or read that changed your career or life besides ninja selling?
I was going to say,
no.
Oh, my life.
That one, there's that one. We got that one off. Now give us another one.
Well, what's hard for me, I don't read a lot. I don't read any sales books. I don't read any how to win friends and influence people. I've never read any of that. I was actually an English literature major in college. So all I did in college was read novels and write papers, So for me to say a life-changing book, I don't know. I don't know that I have that life-changing book. I do like to read, and I love where those, going into different places, universes, paths, people's lives. And I love to write, but I honestly can't. It's true. There's no one book where I said, oh my gosh, I read that and it was life-changing.
So I'll give you one, and then I'll ask you another question to get an answer out of you, but it won't be a book. Don't worry. Okay. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, for negotiating, especially because you love to negotiate.
Yeah. I heard him on a podcast. He's got kind of like a Jersey accent, right? Yeah. He did hostage negotiation, right? Is that
but he didn't have that much of a Jersey accent.
Okay. But I did hear him on a podcast.
Yeah, but hopefully it was mine.
It could have been.
Yeah, it was. No, I'm kidding. He's been on a lot of podcasts. I'm kidding. He has been on our podcast. But the book is like unbelievable. Okay. The book is like unbelievable. But back to influence in your career, who's a person that has done that?
My mother. So my mom was a teacher and a principal. And, back in the day when you could either maybe be a teacher or a homemaker, right? Because she's in her 80s. She only retired like 3 years ago, I think when she was 77. She's a workaholic, but she is incredibly good at what she does. Excellent. She could have run any company anywhere, but she always channeled her skills into the poorest neighborhoods. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. So because of her successes, test scores raising, kids coming to school, higher graduation rates, they always try to put her in the best schools. She's like, no, I want the worst schools. I want the schools that need my help the most. And so I watched her, she's smart, tough, tenacious, hardworking. I mean, she's got so many amazing qualities. And I watched her take those and put them where they were needed most. So honestly, I would say my biggest role model is my mom and her work ethic and the way she treats people. She would treat someone hosing down the driveway the same way she would treat the superintendent of her school system. And she, instilled those values in us as kids, giving back, so I mean, I can't even hesitate. Like, so my mom's
Wow.
probably going to cry if she watches this.
Oh,
It's
that's
definitely my
awesome.
mom. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. She just put herself where she served people best.
Yeah, she did. And she
And she
never
always
took
served
herself
people
out of that place.
and
She
loved people.
never took herself out of that space, even though she could have gone to easier schools, higher performing schools. She always was grounded where people needed her the most and worked really hard to help them do better. And I'd go back and visit her when I was 40 years old, and we'd be in the mall and some adult would walk up to her. That was one of her students. Happened over and over and over. And they'd say, Mrs. Logan, it's David Williams. You may not remember me, but I remember you. And you made such an impression on me. And I watched it happen over and over. And it was so impactful, to see her put her passion toward the people who needed her the most. So yeah,
Wow.
definitely my biggest role model.
That's awesome. I mean, like, you're gonna make me cry.
Yeah, it was amazing. I'd be like, oh, here comes another one of your students, it was pretty cool.
All right, last question
Okay.
is, as we close our conversation today, and if somebody said they're gonna forget everything y'all talked about except one thing, what is that one thing you would say you would hope we would all take away from our conversation today?
I think the path to success is to be yourself, to be genuine, and to focus on people. As long as in this business, as long as you're focused on people and you care about them and you're touching them and you're listening to them, the business will come. You've just, and you've got to follow a process. I mean, when I talk about writing notes and touching 50 people, this doesn't happen by accident, So I think it's twofold for me. It's making sure that I'm in flow and following a process, because everything's a numbers game. That's kind of the math piece. But then I'm doing it in a way that's indigenous to me and that feels right to me, because for me, I got to connect with you. I do. I got to connect with you. I got to know you. And then also, because this is something, sounds like, sorry, I'm making this a much longer
No, I
answer.
love it.
If
I'm
I
writing
have
notes for you. Don't worry.
well,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, you can just edit me out. If I have a
No,
friend
you
who
don't.
hires me, great, let's go. If I have a friend who chooses not to hire me, I don't care. Like, there is nothing
Yeah.
that's going to get in the way of my friendship. I will not think twice if somebody says, for whatever reason, I'm just not going to do this. Doesn't matter, and I'm going to treat my friend, because working with friends is, I think for me, has been a big part of my growth pattern. They're my friend, but they're my client, right? You're my friend and you're not my client. I don't care. I
Yeah,
really
you're still my
don't care.
friend.
Yeah. You just have to take the ego out of it and just know that, you're there, in a different way than my mom, but to serve the people who need you. And, just, I don't know. So I don't know that I answered your question very
Well, you did, because I took notes.
succinctly.
What would you say to this? If we're going to remember one thing from our interview today, it's find your flow. And in doing that, kind of part of the secret ingredient is keeping your ego out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And find your people. I've been on a lot of college visits lately with all my kids over the last few years. And it's like, who are your people? And if you're in flow with your people and you're focused on them from a personal perspective and it's genuine, the deals will come. They'll come, because at the end of the day, people work with people they like, right? And
Beautifully said.
yeah, they do. I mean, they do. Think about it, right? And so that's why, yeah, I
That's
think I'm
it. You
answering your
nailed it
question
right
too long in
there.
a way. Yeah, they
You
do.
nailed
I mean,
it.
people. So if you are around people you like, if you are around people who like you, if you are touching people, if you're genuine and you're honest and you're real, and you're professional and you know what you're doing, it's going to come. It will.
And that gets right back to your flow.
Yeah.
Find your flow.
Yeah.
Find your people.
Yeah.
Check your ego at the door.
Mm-hmm.
Because that'll find your flow. And once you find your flow, smooth sailing.
It all comes. Yeah, it does.
Stacie, that was awesome. Everybody, it's Stacie Chadwick in Castle Pines, Colorado, which is just south of Denver, with Lives at the Beast International Realty. Stacie, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was really fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Jerry Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. If you like this episode, please share it with friends. To find more episodes, search Jerry Metcalf Podcast on any platform for podcasts, or go to jerrymetcalfpodcast.com. That's JEREMETCALF podcast.com.